begin by teaching you a philosophical term, a tautology, T-A-U-T-O-L-O-G-Y, tautology. I'll give you a few examples, first of all. The other day I was talking to someone, and someone owed them $1. And they were kind of making a big deal about it. And I said, what's $1? And the person said to me, $1 is $1. See, a tautology is where it describes the thing by the thing itself. And in philosophy, when you're making arguments, you're not allowed to use tautologies because they don't make sense. Now, this last summer, the Indians went through a wonderful historical streak, winning 4 games and losing 24. They'll go down in history, and during that time, I remember in a conversation, I said to someone, well, you know, the Indians are the Indians. And we knew what that meant. So our passage today is really Hebrews with a tautology. And a tautology is, God is God. Now, there's a certain level where philosophically it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't say anything, but we all know what it means. Because we've had the experience surrounding God, that God is not us. That God is over and above us. That we are dependent upon God. God is God. And not our cherished notions about what we ought to do in worship, our cherished notions about the political causes we ought to get behind, because we know that God is God, and God will have the final say about those things. Now, in order to understand the book of Hebrews, you have to understand that it was written for Hebrews, yeah, people who had been Jewish, presumably, and who were now living in a city, and they had joined the church and began to follow Jesus, and they began having problems. Because the people that they left were angry at them. The people in the community didn't really like it, that they were talking about peace, justice, and togetherness, and acting on those things in the community, so there was a pushback on the people in the church. And there were many people that were leaving and were becoming reluctant to be a part of a movement that they had to suffer for, that they had to really be committed to. And so Fred Craddock calls this part of the book of Hebrews the conversation in the parking lot. In other words, it's as someone is leaving the church, they're going out and talking to them, they've already left, they're out in the parking lot, trying to convince them that they're leaving something that is essential for their lives and valuable for them. And it's got a great beginning, doesn't it? It's like any great novel. Long ago, God spoke to our ancestors in many and various ways. It's a tautology. You all know those stories. The prophets of the Old Testament don't even have to say anything. And then it goes on, but in these days, God has spoken through a son. And then it goes on to describe what that son is like. Now, a lot of times when we have our United Church of Christ, God is still speaking material. In addition to saying that God is still speaking in the United Church of Christ, I think we should also affirm that God is still listening and is present for us. In his book, The Heart of Christianity, Marcus Bohr defined faith as loving God and all that God loves. And then he asked the question, what is it that God loves right now, right here? Did you ever think about it? If we're the church and we're going through change in a culture that is rapidly leaving spiritual roots, what if we founded, as we suggested in our retreat, embracing and celebrating God's love, that we would ask that question every day of our life. What is it that God loves right now, right here? The world needs connections, and it's always been about John 3:16. God so loved the world. Now, there might be many of us who've been in religious traditions that told us that God doesn't love one certain kind of person or another, or that God is punishing one type of person or another. But that's not scriptural. It's not what's in the Bible. That's not always been the center of the life and faith of the church. You have to be willing to suffer for loving people in that community. And so he says, therefore, we have to pay even greater attention to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away from it. Drift. Would that be a metaphor for our times and for our culture? Drift. Drifting away from what we know to be valuable in life, to what we know has created sustainable and stable foundations for communities in the past. Have we drifted away from this notion of love and civility in American culture? Have we drifted away from the notion that our faith might cause us to be uncomfortable at times, and to cause us to love people that we'd rather not love, or rather not have around us? Have we established, as this author of Hebrews is saying, that love is primary, that listening for the voice of God and knowing that God is listening to us is the center of our faith? In our Warriors Journey Home network that we're having the second meeting tonight here in Worcester, there's only a 3-word motto: listen, speak, and heal. What if we listened for the places that God was loving people? What if we waited to speak about those things and find healing? If you don't choose your own intentions and your own values, the world will choose them for you. And if you don't decide a way to go, you will go the way the world around you goes. You won't know community. People are lonely and disconnected in our society today. They feel that no one listens to them. They feel that they have no place to voice their true concerns and share themselves. And we see that in all sorts of abnormal ways in this society that we live in. On World Communion Sunday, this is in short, we need World Communion because we don't have it. We need local community because we don't have it. One of my wife's favorite hobbies is going on vacations and tracking down wildlife that we wouldn't ordinarily see. You guys ever do that? You ever go to a place looking for a certain thing? We've looked for moose in Maine. We've looked for alligators in Florida. We've looked for great blue heron in the parks along Lake Erie. We've looked for possum in the alleys of Worcester. And you can find them too. Believe me. They peek their head out of the gutter. We've looked for puffins in the Atlantic Ocean. And we went to the place where we knew they had a habitat. And so we come to church and we sit and we listen and we heal and we hear what God hears. And we have to enter God's habitat in order to have that healing encounter. Remember those words, in the heart of Christianity, Marcus Borg says, Faith is loving God and all that God loves. What is it that God loves right now, right here? We have to enter God's habitat of love. Hebrews is about making a connection with God. What does God love right now, right here? And so she says these words. Pay close attention to what you have heard, so that you will not drift away from it. Amen.